our daily Bible reading and devotional for February 11th. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24. We'll begin reading in verse 1 through verse 35. Matthew chapter 24. Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, "You see all these things, do you not? Truly, I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away, and betray one another, and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in the house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, 'Look, he's in the wilderness,' do not go out. And if they say, 'Look, he's in the inner rooms,' do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that the summer is near. So also, when you see all these things, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly, I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." A few thoughts for today. As tourists, many of us have certain preferences that we assert when we travel to destinations to see new sights. Perhaps we have done research with anticipation that we will see new and exotic and strange architecture there, especially if these are touted as wonders of the world. Our jaws may drop when we finally behold these structures that have every bit the awe-inspiring detail and magnificence as described. The temple of Jesus' day was, in fact, the third temple on that spot, the first being Solomon's magnificent temple, the second being the rebuilt temple of Ezra and Nehemiah's day, and the third being that which Herod had undertook to renovate. It was this third temple that the Jews referenced when Jesus told them that he could rebuild the temple in 3 days. Of course, Jesus was speaking of his body, but the Jews mistakenly thought he spoke of the temple. We read in John chapter 2 and verse 20, "The Jews therefore said, 'It took 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days?' Josephus affirms this fact when he recounts that in the 18th year of Herod's reign, he undertook to rebuild the temple, this date being 46 years before. How regrettable it must have been for Jesus to make the following statement only moments before this conversation with his disciples on the Mount of Olives. "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stone those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. Behold, your house is being left to you desolate." Matthew chapter 23, verses 37 and 38. Jerusalem, also known as Zion and the city of David, and the Holy Mount, was beloved by God. Its origins go well back in antiquities to the days of Abraham. Imagine what it must have been like in the days of the glory when David danced in the streets with the Ark of the Covenant with him. Even greater would Jerusalem be when Solomon built the temple. But her time of the end was near, and Jesus lamented that day. In disbelief, the disciples asked what the signs would be when this should happen. Who could imagine such a thing as this? Yet, Jesus' prophecy is fulfilled in AD 70. A question of the day. Have you ever thought of what it must have been like for the disciples to hear this prophecy of the destruction of Jerusalem? And finally, a thought to meditate on this day. Is there a structure that you can think of that would have had the devastating impact on you should it be destroyed today? And those are our thoughts for today, February 11th.